To honor outstanding alumni and non-alumni friends for their service to the school and to the community. I would like to take a moment to recognize the 2014 Distinguished Alumni Award recipients. Each of our recipients will be honored at a special program tonight. Our distinguished honorary alumnus is Dr. Stuart Udofsky. Dr. Udofsky is the chairman of the Departments of Psychiatry at Baylor College of Medicine and the Methodist Hospital. He is also responsible for the oversight of academic activities in psychiatry at 4 other major Houston hospitals: the DePelchin Children's Center and the Menninger Clinic. For 14 years, he was on the faculty of Columbia University College of Physicians and Surgeons. A noted author and speaker in his field, Dr. Udofsky has been the recipient of numerous academic and professional awards throughout his very distinguished career. In 2011, he and his wife Beth, also a psychiatrist, were honored with a $25 million endowed chair in their names at Baylor. Dr. Udofsky grew up in Louisville, Kentucky, and graduated from New York University and Baylor College of Medicine. He and his wife have 3 daughters who graduated from Kinkaid: Elissa, class of '99, Lynn, class of '02, and Emily, class of '06. Dr. Udofsky served as both vice chairman and chairman of the Kinkaid Board of Trustees and is currently a life trustee. He is an avid swimmer, never missing his daily workout of 3,200 yards, except on the most important Jewish holidays. Dr. Udofsky, will you please stand so we can recognize you on this outstanding award? This year's distinguished alumnus is Ambassador Adam Airley from the class of 1979. Ambassador Adam Airley is Vice Chairman of the Washington, D.C. office of Mercury, a leading national bipartisan public strategy firm. While at Kinkaid, Mr. Airley participated in debate, drama, cheerleading, and track. He was a member of the Cum Laude Society and Who's Who. Mr. Airley earned a BA in history from Yale University and an MA in international relations from the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy at Tufts University. He speaks both French and Arabic. Before joining Mercury, Mr. Airley built a 24-year career as a Foreign Service Officer with the Department of State. He developed close relationships with leaders in government, business, and the media in both the United States and the Middle East. His positions included serving as U.S. Ambassador to the Kingdom of Bahrain, as the State Department's Deputy Spokesman, and the Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for Educational and Cultural Affairs. Prior to joining the Diplomatic Corps, Mr. Airley worked as a journalist and human rights activist in Paris. His brother Michael is the father of 2 Kinkaid students, Nikki in grade 11 and Tommy in grade 9, and his mother taught at Kinkaid for 37 years before retiring in 2006. Ambassador Airley, will you please stand so we can congratulate you on this outstanding award? Our 2014 Distinguished Young Alumnus is Lieutenant Commander Charlie Escher from the class of 1998. Lieutenant Commander Escher has just recently completed his third combat deployment to the Middle East aboard the USS Nimitz, where he was flying the advanced Super Hornet aircraft. You will hear more about his accomplishments shortly. Lieutenant Commander Escher, will you please stand so we can congratulate you on this award? We are now pleased to have Adam Altzuler, a member of our alumni board, here with us to present the senior class alumni awards. Mr. Altzuler graduated from Kinkaid as a lifer in 1992. He earned a bachelor's degree in finance at the University of Texas at Austin, and also holds an MBA from Rice University. Mr. Altzuler currently serves as Vice President and Treasurer of Eagle Rock Energy Partners an upstream master limited partnership headquartered in downtown Houston. Prior to Eagle Rock, he spent most of his career in investment banking. Mr. Altshuler and his wife Jody have 2 sons, Chase, age 5, who'll be coming to Kinkaid in the fall as a kindergartner, and Reed, age 4. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Altshuler to the podium.
Thank you, Dr. Martieri. Since 1992, the Alumni Association has awarded 2 gifts of $500 in cash to an outstanding senior boy and an outstanding senior girl who best represent dedication to Kinkaid through academic, extracurricular, and volunteer activities. Each year, our job gets more difficult as we have so many outstanding nominees. I would like to thank all the seniors and faculty for your time and interest in nominating candidates. I am pleased to represent the Alumni Board announcing the winners from the class of 2014. Please come forward to accept your award after I call your name. Our Alumni Association Senior Girl Award recipient entered Kinkaid in kindergarten. She is admired for her genuine kindness, patience, and positive attitude. When she finds an area of study she likes, she pursues it to the fullest. An avid student in foreign language, she has taken 2 foreign languages each year while she was in upper school. Well known for her creativity, she is an active member of the Arts Board and a talented, award-winning photographer who enjoys helping others with their projects. A humanitarian, our award recipient has done extensive community service work globally and locally. As president of Kinkaid's Community Service Council, her leadership has helped to significantly increase overall student participation in community service. This year alone, about 20% of students have done more projects than the school requires. She goes about everything she does very selflessly, with no expectation that she will receive anything in return. Today, we are pleased to honor her with this special recognition. Please join me in congratulating the 2014 Alumni Association Senior Girl Award recipient, Eva Neff. Association Senior Boy Award recipient entered Kinkaid in the 6th grade and has distinguished himself as a scholar and a leader. He has taken advantage of many of the opportunities that Kinkaid has to offer. He is respected for his kind, welcoming nature and is a talented leader in several areas. One of the top students in his class, he earned membership in the Cum Laude Society and has been a 4-year member of the prep bowl team. Athletically, he earned 2 varsity letters in tennis. Our recipient's real passion, however, is helping others. He has worked with several community groups through his leadership in the Community Service Council and his efforts outside of school. He spearheaded the school's tutoring program with the Baker Ripley Center, a community center that aims to offer educational opportunities to disadvantaged children. A budding journalist, he currently is the editor of our school newspaper. And I can tell by your reaction that many of you know whom I have been describing, so I'll stop with the details. Please join me in congratulating the 2014 Alumni Association Senior Boy Award recipient, Rohan Knight. Congratulations. Congrats again to Eva and Rohan. I would also like to take a minute and recognize our senior alumni board representatives who have helped the board stay informed of the latest happenings at the school, Lily Morgan and Kurt Brazier. Please stand up and be recognized. Thank you both for an outstanding year of service on the alumni board. this year, and I would now like to hand the program over to Carson Wilson, a member of Kinkaid's class of 1998, who will introduce our speaker today. Mr. Wilson.
Thank you, Adam. Charlie Escher entered Kinkaid in kindergarten and graduated summa cum laude in 1998. While in high school, he participated in student government, was a three-sport athlete, and played on the undefeated SBC championship football team in 1997. After graduation, he attended the United States Naval Academy in Annapolis, Maryland. Charlie graduated from the Naval Academy in 2002 with a bachelor's degree in aerospace engineering, and he set his sights on becoming a pilot. He began flight school in Corpus Christi, Texas, and in 2005, he completed his first carrier landing. Charlie was then sent to Virginia to fly the F-18 Super Hornet, the Navy's newest and most capable fighter jet. He quickly earned numerous qualifications and perfected the skills of dive bombing, dropping guided weapons, mid-air refueling, air combat maneuvering, and flight leadership. Then he learned to do it all again at night. When his training was complete, he deployed in an aircraft carrier to the Middle East, and on multiple occasions was called upon to employ weapons in support of ground troops taking fire in Afghanistan. After completing 2 deployments in 3 years, Charlie was selected as the Navy's top candidate for training as a test pilot, and he was sent to England for the Empire Test Pilot School as part of the Navy's exchange program with Great Britain. In 2012, he was sent back to an operational F-18 squadron and deployed for almost 9 months on board the aircraft carrier, the USS Nimitz, and he recently returned from that deployment 3 months ago. Charlie has accumulated over 2,400 flight hours in 25 different aircraft, flown over 550 carrier landings on 5 different aircraft carriers, and has completed 3 combat deployments, where he has flown close air support missions over Afghanistan, Iraq, and Somalia. Charlie currently lives in Fresno, California, and serves as one of 4 department heads in Strike Fighter Squadron 154, which consists of over 200 officers and sailors in 12 Super Hornet fighter jets. Please join me in welcoming Lieutenant Commander Charlie Escher back to Kinkaid.
It's great to be back at Kinkaid. Thank you so much for the introduction, Carson. It's an honor to be here. My experiences at Kinkaid were unforgettable, and several opportunities I had at this school prepared me and really made an impact on my future career as a naval officer. The 8th grade trip at Kinkaid was the first time I ever visited the Naval Academy, and at the time I knew pretty much nothing about the military, but I knew that I was interested in serving the country, and I had a spark for adventure, and I enjoyed some kind of discipline in my life. Obviously, when I got to Naval Academy, they gave me more discipline than I even wanted, and I got plenty of adventure to go along with it, more than I could have asked for. Everyone who graduates from the Naval Academy has to choose what kind of naval officer to be. You can be a submarine officer, a surface warfare officer, a Marine, a SEAL, or an aviator. The good thing about the Academy is during the summers you get to experience pretty much all of those options to determine which one suits you the best. So I got to do small unit tactics with the Marines and the SEALs, doing urban warfare. I lived on a submarine off in the Atlantic for a week. I took a service ship and navigated it from Annapolis to New York City to Boston Harbor and all the way back. And I guess the one thing that resonated the most with me was the time I get to fly with Navy pilots. My junior year at the Naval Academy was the first time that I was able to break the sound barrier while sitting in the back of an F-14 Tomcat with a squadron based in Virginia. After spending a month with that fighter squadron and breaking the sound barrier and getting flights in the Tomcat, I pretty much knew exactly what I wanted to do with my life. I wanted to become a fighter pilot, just like those guys. That was in June of 2001, just a few months before the events of September 11th. I'm sure for the seniors and everybody else in the room, you'll receive many, many pieces of advice between now and your graduation. And all those are true, and I would echo all those if I had time. However, I'll leave you with a couple of thoughts that apply to me that I kind of found out later on. The first is there will be be plenty of challenges in your career that there's no way you could possibly prepare for. So you'll get a lot of pieces of advice on how to prepare for this, how to prepare for college, what to expect when you get to the real world. But there are plenty of things that you just can't prepare for. In academics, if you have a test coming up over a set amount of material, you study that material, you practice it, you maybe pull out some themes and express yourself on an essay on a test. When I got to flight school after graduating the Naval Academy, I was into something brand new that I had no experience doing. I was getting graded every day, while getting yelled at every day, flying airplanes. I had never really done that before, and I didn't know what I was doing. Didn't know if I'd be good at it, if I'd be a natural, or if it was something that I was just not going to be able to do. Flying itself is relatively simple, I learned. You can study that, you can practice it, you can go over it in your mind, but what is not simple is learning to fight an airplane. I was making split-second decisions at 400 knots while under crushing G-forces and manually dive bombing on a target. I had to max perform my jet while looking over my shoulder to see what the guy behind me was doing, waiting for him to make a mistake that I could notice in the air while I'm under crushing G-forces and react to that to take advantage of his mistake. I learned how to wedge my head in between the canopy and the ejection seat so that I could see all the way behind myself under 7 Gs without having to hold my head up with my neck. And the toughest challenge, I would say, after all that was after 2.5 years of flight school, I had flown 3 airplanes and several hundred hours in aircraft. And then I met a challenge that was pretty darn steep, kind of a weed out type of challenge for most of the class. And that was somehow landing my airplane on a ship in the middle of the ocean. If you pull up the next slide, everybody talks about how big an aircraft carrier is. It's tiny from the air. It's 3.5 football fields long. It's almost a football field wide, 17 stories high. The flight deck is 6 stories over the water, but I'm telling you, the thing is tiny. I wish they built them way bigger. So that's what it looks like from the air. In 2005, the USS Kennedy was off the coast of Florida. I had never flown my jet for more than an hour and a half, and in order to carrier qual, I had to get ready to fly about a 4-hour mission, which is a lot of time to concentrate, obviously. Not only that, I was required to do 2 touch and goes and 5 arrested landings, or we call them traps, because you don't really land on the carrier, it traps you. And I did that 2 days in a row for about a 4-hour flight each time. The water in February was cold in the Atlantic, so I had to wear a rubber dry suit under my flight suit, which I had never done before. And that's to prevent hypothermia if it all went south and I ended up in the water. But there's no runway to land on. It's just a tiny little aircraft carrier in the middle of the ocean that doesn't really want you on it. There's no way to simulate landing on a carrier. It's not like everything else in flight school where you can go into the simulator or you can practice it in this way or that way. It's so different from landing on a normal runway that you almost have to forget everything you've learned about landing an airplane and just kind of figure it out on the fly on the carrier. There's nobody sitting in your backseat, there's no instructor telling you how to do it, what to do better. It's just you alone in the jet trying to figure it out for yourself. Nobody in their right mind would want to sit in the back of a student, especially me, while flying on the carrier for the very first time, so that's why it has to be solo. But to give you an idea, to land on the carrier, you basically fly at it at high speed and low altitude. And then once you cross over the top of it, you brake hard, sharp turn to the left, pull 4 Gs to slow down. Then you have about 20 seconds to slow down to your target airspeed, get your landing gear down, your flaps down, check your fuel weight to make sure you're not too heavy to land on the carrier. Change your altitude, trim to the newer airspeed, and then start your turn around the corner. Whether you're done with all those steps or not, you have to start that turn, and it has to be the most precise turn you've ever done in your life, maintaining altitude and airspeed as you're doing it. There are about 2 wickets or 2 checkpoints to go through as you're coming around over the next minute to do a 180-degree turn. And those are your last 2 chances to sort of make any changes before you roll out on the same heading as the carrier there, and you have about 15 to 18 seconds. This is what it looks like essentially at the start before you hit something. So that's what it looks like when you're turning the groove. You've got 15 to 18 seconds to landing. As you can see, the wake is kind of trailing off to the left. The landing area on the aircraft carrier is not on the same axis as the ship's heading itself. So the ship is constantly, and your runway is constantly moving to the right and away from you as you're chasing it to land on it. The jet is moving at about 154 miles an hour, and you just don't know what the carrier is doing. All you can do to judge how fast the carrier is moving is take a look at the wake behind the ship and sort of estimate it. But of all the parameters to keep track of, the probably most important is the wind direction and wind speed. That'll have the biggest effect on my game plan as a pilot on how to maneuver the jet to stop on the ship. So it's a few intense seconds essentially of hawking your lineup, your angle of attack, and your glide slope indicated by the ball, which is a source of light on the left side of the carrier with a green line under it. That shows you how high or how low you are on glide slope as you're coming in. If you do it right, then the hook of the jet catches onto one of the 4 wires that's strung across the flight deck, and then you come to an extremely violent stop. So if you go to the next slide, I'll have a video for you on what it's like to land on the carrier. And that's coming to a stop in about 2.5 seconds from 154 miles an hour. As you can tell, you can see the constant little tiny corrections I'm making, and that's a halfway decent landing. My first one was absolutely terrible, but good enough to get me on the flight deck, and luckily I had 10 cracks at it before they determined whether I was a qual or a disc qual. So I was able to figure it out, sort of get better every time I did it, and by the 10th one, I felt like I kind of knew what I was doing, and was able to qual on the carrier. Now, I've shown you what it looks like in the daytime. The next video will show you the same thing at night. You might think that the video is broken, but there's just not a whole lot to look at. Too fast. Yeah, try being there, it's terrible. I guess up to this point in my career, like Carson said, I've trapped on the carrier about 550 times. About 200 of those have been at nighttime, and still, just even thinking about the night stuff gets me nervous. And I actually have to go do it again in about 3 weeks. So that'll be exciting. The next picture, you can see a jet landing on the carrier. This is one of the most dangerous work environments in the world, and you can see why. See how close a jet landing is to other people, other jets, other equipment. So it's got to work together as an orchestra. Everybody knows exactly what their job is, and it's got to be done very efficiently and very effectively, or else disasters can and do happen, unfortunately. So after my training was complete, and I landed on the carrier, I was all good to go. I joined an operational squadron based in Virginia Beach, Virginia. And since then I've done 3 operational deployments, flying missions over Afghanistan, Iraq, and Somalia. The next picture is a picture of my carrier, USS Eisenhower, transiting through the Suez Canal in Egypt on our way to the Middle East for my second combat deployment. And the next picture is a jet launching for the carrier for combat. So a typical combat flight involves launching from the carrier, as shown here, crossing it into Pakistan for about an hour. On the next slide. That's myself and my wingman crossing into Pakistan on the way up to Afghanistan. It's about an hour flight up there, and then on the next slide, you can see our loadout with a couple fuel tanks and 3 bombs. We would typically carry 1 or 2 fuel tanks and 3 to 4 bombs heading into combat, plus 20 millimeter gun rounds in the gun. So our job there, we didn't launch with a target in mind. Instead, we were doing close air support. So our sole purpose was to talk to the troops on the ground, whether it be the Marines, Navy SEALs, coalition partners, British troops, foreign troops that were helping us out, and get the picture of what's going on the ground. So sometimes it could be a chill day, and they wanted us to scout out a route that they were going to go for, look for roadside bombs using our onboard sensors, etc. Or sometimes you check in and they're in the middle of a firefight. And you could be doing a relaxed mission of just kind of road clearance, etc. With your sensors, and then you get a text in the jet, no kidding, it actually says you have a text, and you pull it up, and it says, go to this area, there's a firefight going on, essentially. So we'll sprint over there and help out in any way we can. So our whole mission is to talk to those guys on the ground and see what they need. Now, a lot of times if they're in a firefight, there's got to be a lot of coordination, detailed coordination between the pilot in the jet and the troops on the ground to determine where the friendly location is, where the enemy location is. So if we need to put a bomb down, it'll hit the target but not affect any friendly troops or Afghan civilians or houses or goats or anything. A lot of collateral damage concerns over there. So that's kind of what we were doing. We had to train to be fast and effective at that, but absolutely perfect because the stakes are just too high if your bomb gets too close to the friendly troops. A lot of times, 1 bomb is enough to completely end the firefight, so it got to be very satisfying to hear the change in the voices on the ground troops from getting shot at and yelling into the radio to all of a sudden the bomb hits and they're completely relaxed. There's no more gunfire in the background, and we just made their day quite a bit better. Every combat mission took about 6 to 8 hours to fly, so it was a long time. And the jet only has enough fuel for about 2 hours of fighting, essentially. So we would have to do in-flight refueling 3 to 4 times every combat flight. So it makes for a long day. We would go to the tanker and take about 2,000 gallons of gas, to put it in perspective. So the next video is a real quick clip of me joining the tanker and getting fuel. Precise maneuver to put the fuel probe into the basket and then fly formation for about 10 minutes till I get the amount of fuel that I need. And then like everything else, we get good at doing it at nighttime. So the next video is at nighttime through night vision goggles. The next picture is a picture of myself and my wingman over Afghanistan. We always fly in a section or a group of 2 aircraft to maximize our flexibility and firepower. Because if we have to go refuel every couple hours, then it's nice to have a wingman to be able to cover the tactical portion while we trade off and go get fuel. And the next picture is kind of a feel-good picture when the mission's over type of thing. It's always nice to have good scenery in the sunset when you're in the tanker coming home. So after doing 2 deployments, I got a break from the operational flying because I had done my 3.5-year tour in the fleet, and I got picked up for a test pilot school in England. It was a very broadening experience, and it was incredible to get to fly with fighter pilots and helicopter pilots and transport pilots from 8 different countries and learn the art of test flying, which is very different but very exciting type of flying as well. Once test pilot school was complete, I went out to the desert of California and flew as a test pilot for the upgrades to weapons and systems for the F-18. The next picture is a test missile shot for a missile that is not out yet, but it's going to be bought by the Navy and the Air Force. That was me test firing a missile on a drone target that was down low over the water. So half of my job involves flying, the other half is being a naval officer. And I'm willing to bet that just about everybody in this audience at some point will be in a position of responsibility or authority or leadership in your future career. I'm currently one of 4 department heads in a squadron of 200 members, enlisted and officers, and there's been no more broadening experience than being a leader in the Navy. They look to me for guidance, for morale, for leadership, especially when times get tough, and believe me, they do on long deployments. But from my experience, my advice to future managers and future leaders is to be approachable, be respectful, and be a leader. What truly makes pretty much any job rewarding is the people. Almost anyone can learn to manage tasks, assign tasks, ensure the job gets done, etc. But leadership is much different. It involves setting an example of ethical behavior, knowing how to motivate, knowing how to be compassionate, when to be firm, and how to punish. Ultimately, a leader can not only make his people perform better, but makes them want to perform better. In the audience are some of the most influential leaders you'll ever meet, Kinkaid faculty and coaches. You'll remember each and every teacher and coach you had at the school, and you'll remember how their qualities affected your motivation, your interest in their subject, and your success. You'll learn outstanding examples of leadership not only from your teachers and coaches, but also from your peers. And take those leadership examples, especially those good examples from your peers, and stay friends with your peers here at Kinkaid and apply those leadership examples to your life and your future career. Since I've been deployed, I've had amazing support from Kinkaid friends and family. My roommates on the ship received letters constantly, drawings, pictures, and all kinds of goodies from lower school students, upper school students alike. So Pat Kavanaugh was kind of the driving force behind all that. So thank you very much. She was my kindergarten teacher here at Kinkaid, and kept in touch to the point where she was sending me and having her kids here at Kinkaid send us pictures, photos, and all kinds of goodies while we were deployed. It was incredible to have that kind of support. Kinkaid is really a family, and I hope when you leave here and graduate and move on to better things, you'll feel like that family is always there for you. And whether it's landing on an aircraft carrier or being thrown into a leadership position that you're not ready for, or having to make a split-second decision, or taking on a responsibility that you're not ready for, I promise you will face challenges that you're unable to prepare yourself for. What you can do is mentally prepare yourself to be able to outperform what you think you're capable of in those instances when the pressure's on. Not only that, but be a leader in your field and a mentor to others going through the same thing. If you can do that, then there's no limit what you can accomplish. Thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant Commander Escher. It seems as if every guest speaker we have is better than the one before, and that was outstanding. So thank you very much for the inspirational message. The Kinkaid community is incredibly proud of your accomplishments. Thank you for serving our country and for helping us make the world a better place. We really, really appreciate it. I'd also like to thank and congratulate again Dr. Stojudovsky and Ambassador Adam Early. Let's give them a round of applause again. Tonight, all 3 of our recipients will have a chance to speak. And as the assembly concludes, let's also make sure that we again congratulate Eva and Rohan. When we dismiss Eva and Rohan, we're going to take some pictures in the lobby, so you can't run off with your award and your check. So again, thank you everybody, congratulations recipients, and we are dismissed. Have a great weekend.